everybody knows me. But in case you don't, I did grow up here at First Baptist Church in Hamid. I'm from Indiana originally. And I met here. We grew up together. We're high school sweethearts. So we dated through high school. We dated way too long, to be honest. It was 4.5 years, and no one should date that long if you have a ton of rules, especially. So just skip to the end, go ahead and get married, you know? But we dated 4.5 years. We went to college together, got married, and life was good. I grew up, my dad was an evangelist pretty much. So I have 5 sisters, and we would travel the country, and he would preach. And we would sing, and we loved it. We started singing when my grandma was diagnosed with cancer at 59, and she died at 59. And so we recorded these songs. We were just locals. And we recorded these songs, and we weren't that great, but it was for her. But from that was like the Lord breathed on it, and he said it was time to go to churches and just spread the gospel. And so we did. And honestly, that was some of my favorite memories, because we didn't get to see Dad a lot through the 9 months that he worked at college. But those 3 months, he was all ours. And we got to just travel the country and enjoy being a family. And so that was my upbringing. I'm thankful for it. There are so many parts that I know are special, and I try to be so thankful for. We ran a ministry called Salem Ministry, which I should make the joke. Should I make the joke? Yeah. I'll make the joke. So like me, my maiden name is Hooker. Go ahead and laugh. It's fine. That's my maiden name. And we worked in the Salem Ministry, so we would bring sailors down on the weekends as little girls for years. My dad was in the ministry for 20 years. And so that was a running joke, because that hookers bring down sailors on the weekends. Sad joke. But as it wasn't like that. These boys were young, they were homesick, and so we would sing as little girls. We would sing for them. We would feed them meals on the weekends. They would get saved. They would meet Jesus. And we still hear from, my mom and dad would still hear from guys today who, some of them are pastors, just all over the country. So it is funny, ironic how the Lord places you these fun places. But anyway, it was a ministry that we really enjoyed. So I love my life, but some of it through that became a lot of pressure. So the way I grew up was very legalistic, a lot of rules turned into a lot of pressure. So my parents know a difference. They're first generation Christians. And so they just raised us with what they knew and what they were given. And it was fine. It wasn't all bad, but there were a lot of things that were unnecessary. So through our life, you just kind of figuring out what you keep and what you toss, what the Lord is telling you to do, and what he's not, what's for you, what's not. So that took a long time to figure that out. So as a child, though, I really struggled with performance. And I learned really quick. So about, the 3rd year into my dad's ministry, he got severely sick, like really, really sick. They didn't know what was wrong. And so for 10 years, he was sick, to the point where he would sleep for, 16, 17 hours. He would drag himself up. He would go into the office for the hours that he had to work, and then he would come home and he'd go right to sleep. So for a good 10 years of my life, he really wasn't existent. And the times I did see him, he was very angry and very volatile. Come to find out, the sickness he was battling was driving a lot of that. And I remember I would just see him cry, and then I would see him get angry. I would see him cry. And, you can only process so much as a child, but so much of that also defines your relationship with God. And so as I grew up, I just kind of learned how to behave so I wouldn't get unwanted negative attention. So I'm number 4 in the line. So of course, the oldest 2 are terrible. And so I just learned that older girl, don't do that. Just be really quiet. Never give way too much attention. Don't want it to end like that. So I would just retreat, find my place, be by myself, find my happy place. And so that's kind of how I learned to just be. It became something very natural to me to just be quiet, sit back, don't speak, just be not noticed, and then you won't get negative attention. So, and I tell you all that because it'll hopefully tie in, if any of this makes sense. Oh, goodness. When you go to write down your thoughts, they're always chaotic, so my whole worry, please help. But even as a child, A word always confused me, the Bible, a couple of them. One was abide. You ever read that passage in John? Abide in me, I will abide in you. I am in you, you are at me, we are at him. We are like, that is so confusing, but it feels really relevant. Like, if he's not in you, the branches are not going to thrive. Something's going to get cut off. And it just was like something that I really struggled with understanding. What did it even mean, that word abide? It was a word that confused me, or it felt like a duty, or like there was shame around not abiding. So it became something that I just didn't even want to try, because I didn't feel like something that could be accomplished. How do you remain always in Jesus, and will he always remain in you? And so I'll have to say, as I grew up, how my dad was, which we have had so much healing, and it's been beautiful. And he knows a lot of this anyway. And so we've grown together in just forgiveness and all the things. But I began to project that on our father. And so abiding with someone like that did me not feel safe. And that felt very unstable to me. It didn't feel like it could be a relationship, because if you say or do the wrong thing, then you could get a negative reaction. And my only experience with God the Father was very, very distant, and most of the time just punishing you, which I know is a lot of people's stories and experiences. I know mine's not that unusual in that regard. Jesus I loved. Jesus I knew and met as a child and felt very safe with Jesus, and he was my friend. And someone that, for whatever reason, I just always felt comfortable with. But I still had this thing where my coping with fear or whatever negative thing in my life was to retreat, be quiet, don't make a sound, and you won't be noticed. When you do that, you also don't get to feel a lot of positive affection. So you remove yourself kind of from all of it. And as I got older, it didn't really come into play until after I got married and I had Kenny. Kenny is obviously a huge part of my story. Many of you have heard it. But when he was born with a rare disease called familial idiopathy. He was the first baby of 30 years to be born at Broadway Methodist Hospital. They had never seen a child born with this condition in 30 years. They made sure you of that. And he was quite the science project, which I wasn't thrilled about. But everybody from all over came and had to touch and see this baby that was trapped in his body. And that was tough. That was a moment that I was not prepared for. That caught me off guard. And I thought, okay, but I'm good, really good at performing and getting through it. So we'll just put on the right face. We will look straight ahead and we'll just get through it. And I could say all the cliches. God is good all the time. He has a purpose and a plan. Fill in the blank. I would quote the scriptures because I had them hid in my heart, which is good. That's a good thing to happen there, because you are grasping at anything to hold on to. When you're searching your heart for why in the world something like this could possibly ever happen to a child. So I wrestled with that for a while, and about 9 months so the way the skin condition works is he can't shed his own skin. So when he was born, he was encased in this thick membrane, and as soon as he came out, it was like it hardened and encased around his body, and he began to shed that. It was like this shell that would break open. And, his eyes, ears, everything was affected. So about 3 weeks after I brought him home, he began to do that, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's dying. Like the skin underneath was so pink and so bright. I had never seen anything like it. And of course, he's my first child, so I didn't even know what a normal baby was supposed to know what they look like, but you don't look now. And babies look weird, cone heads, all kinds of weird things. So I'm thinking, maybe this will pass, but it didn't pass. And he said, we ended up connecting with a doctor that was really knowledgeable, really great. His shoes. I cried every time I went to visit her in Indy. about every 2 months, and she was wonderful. But it was a journey of trying to figure out how this happened. Well, your skin goes through cycles. So every 2 weeks, he would go through another cycle. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. So I would just shield him. I would hide it, and I would shield him. This is all I need to do. That's one thing for me to perform, but I couldn't hide that anymore. It was out in the open and everybody knew. So I would just did everything I could to protect him from anyone and everyone. Well, 9 months into it, he went through a really bad spell. And, when you press down, all the things that you're supposed to do every single day, give to Jesus every day. Sometimes it's every day for years. But it is what keeps you from bottling it all up. 9 months, almost exactly, you went to this really bad spell, and I came home, and I thought, and it was like the bottom line was just absolutely about to explode. Well, I knew I couldn't abandon him, but I could abandon my husband. So I was like, get us out. I'm done. We're done here. I don't know what you're going to do on these. So I got in my heart, and I grabbed Kenny, and I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do, but I was going to go. I knew I couldn't run away from it, but I knew I had to go. So I got in my car, and I turned it on, and it was just like the floodgates opened, and the bottle popped, and it all came out, and all I could do was just scream. I screamed, and I cried, and I just let it all out. Then I told the Lord, and I meant with every fiber of my being, I hate you. I really, truly did. I said, I hate you so much. Because in my mind, he could have fixed it. He was the only one that caused. And man, as soon as those words left my mouth, it was the first time I'd ever heard all but the audible voice of God say, "No, I love you so much." And it shocked me. It was like it pushed me back in my seat, and I thought, why would he say that? Like, is that just what I wanted to hear? But I was pretty aggressive, and I wasn't really holding back my true feelings. And as soon as the words left that I hate you so much, he said, "No, I love you so much." And I didn't realize how hearing God's voice, I didn't know that's what I was searching for. I didn't know that's what I needed. But God knew. He knew exactly the moment how to cry out. He knew exactly when I would be desperate. He knew exactly the very second I would be able to receive it. All the other points in my life, I didn't really need it. Surrounded by affectionate parents, I was blocked very well. I have zero complaints. But there was this disconnect from what my parents had and what they had to go through to find Jesus for themselves, and what I needed to go through to experience Jesus myself. Not just for that one moment, but for the rest of my life. And if I didn't have that moment, I'm not sure I would have ever searched for it. Because I was really good at what I did. And it worked for me. Everything else could be hidden. Struggles in my marriage, you can hide that. My own disappointments in myself, my own insecurities, my fear, anxiety, you can really hide. I'll blob that really well, and I got good at it. But this, I couldn't hide. So I was forced to face it, and I was forced to decide who God was and who he was to me, which sounds so silly. Growing up in a Christian home, getting saved at 7, I knew Jesus. But there were parts of Jesus that I had never discovered, and I knew he wanted me to discover about him, that were to dramatically change my entire life. So I get to that moment. I go back inside. I don't think I told Ken right away what had happened, because I probably would have felt like he would have judged me or been disappointed. So I held to myself. But going forward, I knew that I had that moment and there was no going back. And I knew that I experienced something that I didn't understand, but I wanted to know more about. At the time, my marriage was struggling quite a bit. Ken had his own struggles, she shared here. I knew about them, but I was not at all equipped to help, didn't know what to do. Completely helpless other than read your Bible and pray. But I'd already tried that and hadn't worked yet. Nothing changed. So I'm like, well, then it doesn't work. Doesn't work, then I'll fix it myself. So I began to pick up control in many different areas. I couldn't control Ken, but I could control me. And everything that I have with me right now became mine. And I would be the fixer, and I would control it. So I had that moment with Jesus, but that kind of started to get pushed. Because going forward, you start to hear all the verses. I would read them a lot. I had a verse over his bed that said, I think I had rejoice evermore, or rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. I'm like, rejoice always? Like, no, nobody does that when they're faced with this. Every time I would pick him up, no one's rejoicing. I don't even know how that looks or what you do with that. I would quote verses like, I can't even think of it now. I just drew a blank. Anyway, all the verses, the fruits of the Spirit, you're supposed to have all the fruits of the Spirit. I might have like a fruit, like joy for the moment. And it felt like I was manufacturing, but fruits plural, those were not active in my life. I thought, maybe I'm not even saved. I would question those things. Like, if you're supposed to have all of this and I'm not experiencing any of it, then what am I missing? So I'm on this journey, about that time. So I'm searching, but I do it on my own and not being super aggressive about it. I'm just keeping that moment to myself. Because honestly, if I exposed it, then I would have to release control, and I wasn't ready to do that. That would have been a really big deal. So fast forward, we went through the next most traumatic time in our life, which was my father-in-law committing just a horrible act and going to prison. And that was so shocking and became the next defining moment of how does that happen? That you're wrestling with all of these thoughts and how does God allow this? And I think my picture of God was so small that he obviously, allowed this and it's probably because we're not Christian enough, we're not growing enough, whatever. You fill like with all the cliches. But none of it brought me peace. None of it gave me understanding. None of it made sense. And so when we decided to move, I gave the performance answer of yes, of course, Jesus is calling us. I'm like, who knows? Don't know, hadn't heard. But you do you, and I'll do me, and we'll just get through this somehow, some way. And I joke a lot. I had moments where I knew Jesus was present, but honestly, he felt like he was getting further and further away from me. And in some ways, I was okay with it. I was okay because I felt that, at least in this situation, Kenny was in better hands with me. I had a better grasp on it, and everything was just better this way. So let's just separate the two. When we moved to Ohio, that was a whole other turn of events that exposed a lot more about my heart than I cared to admit. So about 6 months in there, I just remember driving around the neighborhood thinking, like, where in the world am I? And then, like, what is life really all about? And all those questions would start to just ruminate in your mind, Is life worth living if you have to live with something chronic? And probably people who go through chronic things probably have dark thoughts like that anyway, just because you don't have answers. And without God, it feels very lonely and hopeless. So I started wrestling a lot with that. Is God real? Is he even good? And I remember asking God to show himself to me to do something. So I took a month and I said not to pray about anything. And I decided that I was only going to think, and I was only going to go, if I ever prayed, I was going to go in, I was going to go every day. I was just going to think, thank you, God, for whatever I ever felt like. I wasn't going to ask him for anything. I did an entire month of just thankful prayers. And the list that I had on the other side of the paper, every single thing was answered. And it was really remarkable. And I kind of just threw it out there to test God. Because he said, and you all know if you've been here, he said, enter my courts with praise and thanksgiving, right? And that was his promise. So it's like, okay, and I tested it back then. That was whenever, 12 years ago. So I did. I experienced God in that way. I'm like, okay, but still up until that one time I heard his voice, I'd never heard his voice again. So then you wonder, is that just me, or is that something that, is there more where that comes from? So I began asking God those questions because I wanted to know more. And that was when it was 2017. And I kind of just given into the church thing. I would do the pastor's wife thing. I would go out every Sunday, lead the songs. But I knew in my heart, I really didn't believe everything that I was saying. I experienced it. So in 2017, lo and behold, Claire's born. You guessed it. Another one. When she was born, that was it. I remember the moment, and it was like it broke something inside of me. And thought that I hadn't figured out how to deal with it, and all the things. But something shifted. And I knew that I was never going to be the same. And I thought I had dealt with all the things. God had a plan. There was a purpose. Candace could make sense. I could reason it away. I could create scenarios in my head as to why he would have this. But then to have another one, I just couldn't find it. I couldn't make it up. Couldn't find it. And that was it. So I remember one day Ken sent me, he sent me a book, and it was called The Life You Never Expected. And I threw it away. It's like, I'm not reading that. That's too much life. I have to give into this that I have to accept this and actually throw it in the trash room, but I did throw it across the room. So he let it go. He didn't push it. And then about a month later, I picked it up, and I remember when I opened it and I began to read just the first chapter, the way the Holy Spirit entered the room. It was like I got saved. I can't explain it. But I was reading this couple's story, and they had these two severely autistic children. The first one was born very severely autistic, and the second one even worse. And their story was how he talked about Jesus, and how he talked about how he would find Jesus in all these places. I don't know what that means. I don't really understand what he's saying. But I know if I don't find that, I'm done. Because unless the Lord reveals himself to me in a tangible way, then none of it is real. None of it. I was tired of the Christianese. I was tired of the manufacturing. I was tired of fake. And as you can see, I'm just not going to be fake. I'm just going to tell you what I think. And this is how I feel. And this is what God did. But that came out of a very, very broken heart that was desperate for healing. And so when the Lord just kind of fell in that room, I had not experienced anything like that before. And that was that moment that I knew he was real, and that moment I could hold on to. And then I remember the moment he spoke to me in the car that had been buried really, really far down. And I thought, okay, number one, I believe in you. So I spoke that out. I said, number two, yes. Yes, you can come into my name. So risky to allow him to come into your pain. Because humanly speaking, if you allow people into your pain, they could hurt you more. Sometimes it just doesn't go well. If you're vulnerable or you speak, Little Candace didn't know how to process that because my experience was never a good response. But I knew that if I continued to try to control it and deal with it myself, I was going to turn my back on God, get rid of all of it, take my kids, leave my marriage, and be done. In the heart of hearts, I didn't really want to do that. It just didn't feel like that there was some other option. Because the pain was too great, and I couldn't fix it. And I'm a fixer. I'll research till I'm blue in the face. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to make it happen. And there is no cure. There was no fixing it. So I invited Jesus into my pain. And from that moment on, I began to experience it. It wasn't all immediate healing. The amount of time we're Shepherd Church, so we're all about hearing God's voice. I'm just telling you my story and how I heard his voice. So 9 months, that was the first time I heard his voice. Second time he came into the room, and I felt his voice. And I felt his presence. And then I started to dream. And I thought, I don't ever remember dreaming in my life until I asked the Lord to start speaking to me. And boy, did he ever start speaking to me. And the dreams were scary. I didn't really know how to process them. The Lord knew. And so as he slowly started to show me different fear places in my life, and different places that I had kind of given over to the enemy, thoughts, all the things, he started to heal all of those places, and that came through dreams. I began to ask the Lord to let me see his eyes. I wanted to see what the Father was seeing, so he could change my heart, not just in my circumstance, but for others. And I'll never forget, I was praying in my room one time, and I'd never experienced pictures or visions or whatever you want to call it. And I just got asked of the Lord. I said, Lord, let me see your eyes. I just want to see your eyes, because if I could see your eyes, then I can see people how you see them. And that would just be incredible, right? Because the way I felt, my heart was filled with so much judgment and so much pride, and just these terrible thoughts and things that I would carry all the time that really felt natural, but really nasty, and not at all things a behavior that looks at all like Jesus. I remember I was sharing with a man. I said, I remember when we first started our church, I remember looking at a girl that came in, and I was like, she knows better, how she was dressed, whatever. And Ken was like, Candace, she actually doesn't know better. I'm like, how can you say that? Of course she knows better. She grew up in this Christian home, and then he broke it down for me. He said, and he did go into detail. He just broke it down to like 3 sections. And I was like, wow. He said, she was given one part of the gospel. And that was it. And everything else around that, she was never given. And it was like, and next time I saw her, I thought, you're right. She's trying to find herself, her identity, who she is, and all that based on one little part of Jesus. And there's so much more than that. And my heart just broke for the moment. That's kind of the first time I experienced that, like, judgment breaking off. And boy, that was free. And I was like, oh, thank you, Lord, that's gone. There was a lot more to go. But after Claire was born, I had started to make some healing progress. Sorry, I'll try to hurry. I started to make some healing progress, but I could kind of tell the story about the bathroom PT. So we were working on, it was actually a special bathroom. Had Kenny, a tub special made for Kenny and Claire, really expensive. So we were painting this bathroom, and the sermon was playing, and then this guy started praying this prayer. And honestly, I am still at this point the submissive yes woman. I mean, I'm trying to catch up to everything Ken was doing, but he was on this whole other wavelength with the Lord. Like the Lord had already taken him on a journey, and I was just like trying to just process and see it change so much. And it was all good, but I also felt like, yeah, that's good for you. Yes, go change. Like, get right. Do what you're supposed to do. So I felt very strongly like that. Like, I'm good. I don't have those problems, and you really do need to deal with them. So, or deal with them. And so I would pray, but I wasn't exactly like, looking at my own heart through a lot of it. So we're painting this bathroom, and this guy starts praying this just amazing prayer. And tears are just flooding my eyes, and I turn around and look at him, because tears are just flooding to his eyes. And you could feel, and I didn't have any context for this, or just know what deliverance was or anything, but you could all hear like things falling to the ground. And I thought, well, this is a little bizarre. Okay, and we hugged, and he was like, we exchanged like an I'm sorry, I'm gonna forgive, this kind of thing. And I mean, that was beautiful, but that was a little strange. And moving on, so he's continuing to pursue Jesus, and he keeps putting things in front of me to watch this, look at this testimony, read this book. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm gonna do it, So I'm trying to process it all, but I had not yet quite had also that Holy Spirit experience where I had my couple, but they were not ongoing. I would lose it. And it was like I would go back to my old behaviors and all I knew. And I had justified it because I felt like, well, I have to. It's what they're in front of me. I'm a caretaker, a caregiver. I have to do it this way. There's really no other way. But the Lord knew there was another way. He's just waiting for me to catch up. So I kept absorbing it all, and I kept trying to take it all in. And one night, I began asking Lord, okay, I don't understand it all, but if the whole Bible's real, he knew there were parts in here that I just really didn't understand. Life abundant. Who's living life abundant? Come on, Rachel, it's life abundant. Okay, who knows what abundant means? I mean, I'm looking for that because that's what he says that you should have. And I know it's not money, and I had seen enough of my life. My parents passed me, I feel like a generation blessing would have been faith. They passed down the gift of faith. So I knew the Lord provided. Food showed up all the time, but really that was only for Rickman. It was a lot of food. So either people just picked up on it, or Lord knew what we needed, and he always provided. So I did not provide it. I did not really struggle with that part of Jesus. However, there were lots of other parts that I did struggle with. And prayer language was one of them. And I thought, that's going to be something that's wild. So the king would tell me, if you get your prayer language, it's going to make you stronger. And I'm like, okay, well, I know what that means, but I'll ask the Lord. Say, I do need to get stronger. So one night was great over Claire. And I went to her room. And I really didn't know what else to say. I prayed, and I cried, and I prayed. I really wanted the Lord to heal them. They're not healed. Okay, I'm going to surrender it again because you have to. I keep having to. And these other words came out, and it scared me. And so I stopped immediately. Like, whoa, let's back up because I don't know what just happened there. But I didn't tell Ken for weeks, months, maybe. I don't know. I went back to the Lord, and I'm like, okay, if this is you, I'm just going to trust you with it, because if I need to get stronger, which I think that I do, I'll try again, but only if it's you, and only if this is safe and it's right and it's in the Bible. So I would open my Bible, and I would only read, open my Bible, I would read the scriptures, and then I would sing the scriptures, and eventually I would just sing the Psalms. And just this beautiful language, as if you were listening to your 1-year-old or 2-year-old try to explain something to you. And it was like, Laura's like, that's it. I love to hear you talk to me that way. And it was this beautiful moment of relationship. To be honest, the word intimacy was really a hard word for me. I struggled with that word. Could be for many reasons. It was distorted, or I didn't have a good view of it. My marriage at that time wasn't great. So I knew there was a lot of rebuilding of trust and relationship, but that word intimacy would really hang me up. And I really just thought, well, what do you want from me? And I couldn't get over that hump. There's going to be some expectation, and I know at the end of the day, I'm probably going to disappoint you. So let's just not even go there. Let's just keep it right here. This seems like a safe spot. It's how I handled the kids. It's how I handled a lot of things. And the Lord was satisfied with that, thank goodness. And so over time, he started to show me this beautiful, pure a version of poor intimacy. And really, it's just a familiarity. It's being so comfortable with someone. You're just so familiar with each other. There's just nothing that you could do that would ever drive you apart. And I just had not fully experienced that. But I tasted it. I knew it was there. And I knew I had to find it. So for me, it was a long journey in getting there. I don't think it necessarily has to be that difficult, but I kind of made it that difficult, probably. So I pursued it. I went after it in faith and asked him for more. Well, that's at least my moment of communion, which I think Ken shared, where I was struggling, again, with Claire. So just to be honest with you, it's a journey. It's not like, sometimes it's not a one and done. Relationships take work. They take pursuit. They take a lot of persistence, a lot of, what's the scripture that it's the heart of a king to hide a matter, conceal a matter. And it's us to search it out. I think the Lord loves that. That's part of a relationship. He loves for us to find it. It's like hidden treasure. I mean, it's so exciting when you find it. And when we took communion that night, I knew there was probably a couple of things that I needed to just get out. And so when he asked me, what would you say to Jesus? It felt very religious. And I was like, okay, this is what we're doing? Okay. Just at church, communion church, or we're going to do it right here. So I felt very it rubbed me the wrong way. But I sat down and I just said, well, I would tell him, thank you for dying on the cross. Roll my eyes, and that was it. He's like, okay, well, what would you really say to Jesus if you were here? And here goes the bottleneck, and me exploded out with, if you were right here, I could see walking. My, would any child be afflicted with such a horrible disease? What kind of punishment is that? It's so deep. And I just told the Lord, I told him all of it. If you were here, that's what I would say. I genuinely. And the more than not speak to me right then. But I felt a release in my chest of okay, I know he knows how I feel. So the next morning I got up and I said, I'm just going to go for a walk and try to continue this because I don't want to lose it. I know that it's a process, but I don't want to lose what little bit I've experienced because I know I need them for the rest of their lives and for their time that I have them. So I went on the walk and I don't think I was listening to any music or anything. I just said, Lord, I just want to talk to you. And I could hear him say, I'm here, to the point where I turned to look behind me and it scared me. I thought someone was behind me. And there was no one there. And I said, instinctively, I know. Yes. I'm always here. I said, I know. The Lord has been in every moment of every one of our lives. But I remember when I was praying one time and I said, I was just asking the Lord to reveal his heart to me. Tell me how he feels about Kenny and Claire. What do I need to know? And how do I continue to release them to you? And I'll never forget the picture he showed me. And it was like my eyes were closed and it was like I could feel him come up next to me and kneel down next to the bathtub. Then I could see him look at me, I looked at him, and I saw his hands on them. And if you know about them at all, it was hours and hours and hours I spent every day on my knees next to the bathtub. And I never once ever pictured him kneeling down beside me. And I was outdone. I know that I never had to do this alone. I wasn't actually ever alone. I just didn't know where to look. I didn't know that that was a part of his character that I could experience every day and should experience every day for the rest of my life. That's relationship. That's abiding. He actually meets me the most in my weakness. He meets me the most just where I'm at. I think he actually loves it when we're not striving or performing or trying to get his attention in some way with some fancy words. He loves to just meet you in your pain. Only problem with that was I started to experience him only in pain. And then I thought, the enemy loves to come and distort everything the Lord is doing. So his next move was to distort that for me. And it was like, hey, you only encounter Jesus in pain. And I was like, I don't want that. Like, I have to only live in pain, so they're never going to be healed for me to experience Jesus. So it was this whole thing that the Lord was so good to just come alongside that immediately. And I'm so thankful he exposed it, because it began to kind of pull my heart away in a way that, like, I was like, but I really don't want to be like Job. And Chanel, some days I felt like we were scraping swords every day. And I'm going to have Kay come up in a minute. And I asked him, I'm like, is it okay if you sing this song? And I'll cry, not because the song is good. I have probably 14 songs saved in my phone that this kid has written, that he has started writing since he was like 8. And but this song in particular, he came with my friend Wednesday night, and he was like, hey, I wrote a song after church just back there, and he was just playing it. He played it for us, and I wept, because I don't know, maybe 3 days before, I felt the Lord. Guys, it's such a process with Jesus. We're never going to reach the end till we get to heaven. So it will be discouraging. You have to go back and fix one more thing, deal with one more thing. But the Lord was so gentle and so loving, so don't take this the wrong way. But he was like, Candace, you're trying to intermediate for your kids. You're trying to block them from feeling any pain. I wanted them to experience God, but I really didn't want them to experience pain. Am I still at that point, association with God coming into their life was they were also going to have pain. So if I get to stand right in the middle, then I'll absorb it, and they'll get to experience all the good things of Jesus. And it was going to be like a win-win, And he came into it. I told Ken, I said, a word just said, you're trying to, you think it's good, and it looks okay initially, but it's not okay. You're preventing them from fully knowing me and fully experiencing me, because through endurance, right? Through pain, through trials, you endure, you learn to grow, and then you experience joy. So you're actually keeping them from experiencing that part of me. And I was so convicted by that, because I felt like I was protecting them. I felt like I'm going to keep them, they'll get to experience God, they'll love Jesus, all the things, and they do. But then he wrote this song, and I was like, oh my goodness. And you'll hopefully hear it in the words. And I think you'll get it. But I realized the Lord was like, no, it's their time. Their testimony is their testimony. I'm going to do to them what I've always played. Do not protect them from me. Right? They're safer in my hands. Let them experience all of me, just like you have to experience all of me. And it was just a very healing moment for me in reminding myself, you can't control the topic. Don't have again. That's not a good idea. And also how Jesus, how they encounter Jesus is going to be special. And it's going to be just for them. And I can't manufacture it. I can't force it. I can't create it. They have to find him. And they have to believe for themselves who he is who he says he is. So can you play?
This is lost orphan, wandering these days unknown, always looking in, knowing they would never let me through. See on my own, I'm covered in this sin with your love. Where can I begin? Open the door of my heart. Your grace overwhelming this shame. You tore out the shackles of my past. Told me I'll never be the same. You opened the door of my heart. Your grace overwhelming this shame. Tore out the shackles of my past. Told me I'll never be the same. I was a spotted lamb. I kept leaving the 99. You were the searching shepherd, and you never left me behind on my own. I'm covered in this sin, but with your love, where can I begin? You opened the door of my heart. Your grace overwhelming this shame. Tore out the shackles of my past. Told me I'll never be the same. You opened the door of my heart. Your grace overwhelming this shame. You tore out the shackles of my past. Told me I'll never be the same. The door of my heart, grace overwhelming this shame. Tore out the shackles of my past. Told me I'll never be the same. I was this long lost orphan, wandering these caves unknown, always looking in, but knowing they would never let me through, but now they do.
I heard that and thought, oh, he's searching and the word searching. He's like, I'm wandering. I feel like an orphan. I'm looking. He's like, Candace, you're in between them. Get out of the way. Let him find it. And I was just so moved by that the Lord will take him on his own journey and he'll have his own experiences, just like we all do. But that I didn't need to Ray just because I felt I had carried it all this time and that I was better at it and I could protect him. So it was a beautiful moment, and I'm thankful. And now I can honestly say I can see the Lord doing so much through the trial. That's not my entire testimony, but it's obviously a big part of it. And I guess I hope what you take away is that it builds your faith. That if you're in the waiting, that God's doing something. If you've already experienced healing, praise Him, praise the Lord. If you're on the other side, and you're just wanting more of Jesus, there is more. Because until we get to heaven, we will not experience all of who He is. And that He wants to meet you exactly where you're at. You do not have to change for Him. You don't have to become like anyone you think is more Christian or better or more deserting. He already knows your heart, so you might as well just speak it out. It's better for your ears to hear it. We speak it out, shows light in the darkness, the roaches scatter, and all of a sudden Frio comes, and it happens like that. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I've seen it time in my own life, in my kids, my family, and thankful for the Lord's redemption. I'm so thankful that He takes ashes and these beautiful things. Don't we all need them? And I'm thankful for Shepherd Church. I'm thankful that we have a community and a people who are growing to learn to hear God's voice together, speaking to each other's lives. Because that is amazing and a powerful, powerful tool. The moment I started hearing God's voice for myself, all of a sudden the floodgates opened to hearing God's voice for other people. And that was so exciting. When I asked God to see His eyes, talk about being undone. Careful if you ask Him that. He'll show you how He sees. I didn't know I was having some vision out to Ezekiel that apparently was Ezekiel, because I read Ezekiel, because Ezekiel's so weird. He's just really weird. And so I skipped over that every time. I'm coming. This guy, I'm good. So, but then the Lord brought me this vision, and it was just so beautiful. And I thought, wow, I was just seeing all these strange things. But that was God to say, ask me, and I will reveal myself to you and what you need to know and for others. And that has been just the absolute joy of my life, to get to sit in front of someone and say, it's your broken heart, but I want you to know it's actually still about you. But it's most fun is to hear God for yourself. That is just, you'll never be the same. So pursue it. Ask Him to speak to you and to come into the pain. That's when He comes into it. Not only does healing take place, right? But you learn that you can trust Him with it. So with the enemy trying to distort, the Lord was coming into him on those tender, sensitive spots and being incredibly gentle with me. And to see it from that perspective, instead of Him only coming with me, dramatically shifted everything. It's like, if you could trust me with that, then really truly you could trust me with anything. I already came in and I already proved to you that I'll care for you and that I will love you and heal you and all the things. And there is actually I never experienced an angry response. I never experienced anything that my mind thought I might experience other than love and healing. So I hope tonight, I hope that was an encouragement. And maybe in the prayer time, as you just take a few moments to pray, ask the Lord to show you His eyes. See what He shows you. If you're not brave enough to do that, I understand. But picture the cross, as long as you do that here, and ask Him to show you some part of His body. Something the Lord showed me, and it helped me so much. When I first asked Him that question, was He showed me His hands. And it was beautiful. But that meant a lot to me because everything I did at that time was with my hands. And I was tired. And I felt lonely. And He was like, I've been carrying it with you. So just ask the Lord. And just the moments of music plays, just take a couple minutes. Ask the Lord to show you some part of Him at the cross. See what He reveals to you. See if it doesn't go along with some part in your heart that either needs healing or that you just needed Him to come into, that you could begin to trust Him with.